People do crazy things with money, but no one is crazy. We simply see different worlds. Your personal experience with money makes up maybe 0.0001% of history, but that tiny fraction dictates exactly 80% of how you think the entire world works. We are all just reading one single page from a deeply complex, infinite financial manuscript. And from that single page, we confidently build our entire reality, our own unique illusion of truth. What seems like absolute financial madness to you might make perfect, logical sense to them. We try to understand wealth using spreadsheets and formulas, but money is rarely about pure math. It is driven by deeply rooted emotions shaped by traumatic historical events we never personally witnessed. You did not choose the year you were born. You did not choose your initial economy. To understand why we fail with money, we must look beyond ourselves. We must look at the hard data. In 2006, the National Bureau of Economic Research asked one seemingly simple question. They gathered 50 years of data from the Survey of Consumer Finances, millions of human decisions, half a century of wages, inflation, stock market crashes, and desperate lotteries, all reduced to cold numbers. The economists wanted to mathematically map exactly how people determined financial risk across entirely different generations. The standard assumption was that human beings calculate financial decisions like perfectly rational, emotionless, mathematical machines. But the NBER economists discovered something profoundly different. We are not perfectly rational calculators. We are emotionally scarred survivors. They found that an investor's willingness to take financial risk depends entirely on their specific, personal history. Not their raw intelligence, not their education, but the exact economic weather they experienced during early adulthood. The inflation and brutal stock market crashes experienced in your 20s permanently wire your financial brain. Let me show you exactly what this means in reality. Let us observe two vastly different American generations. Imagine a person born in the year 1950, a child of the post-war industrial era. As this person entered their most impressionable 20s, the stock market completely flatlined for a decade. For years, these young adults watched an economic machine that simply refused to move forward. That brutal stagnation becomes their ultimate financial truth. They learn that investing is a pointless trap. To them, the stock market is a dead, sealed vault. Risking money there seems absolutely insane. Now, shift your focus entirely. Imagine another person, born exactly 20 years later in 1970. When they entered their most impressionable 20s, the stock market did not stagnate. It exploded, growing tenfold. For this specific generation, every single financial risk they boldly took was instantly rewarded with massive wealth. To them, the stock market is a magical, unstoppable machine of endless prosperity, a guaranteed golden ticket. When these two generations argue about money, they sound completely insane to each other. Yet, both are absolutely right. Now, consider another invisible, terrifying force that dramatically shapes human financial psychology: the silent thief. If you lived through the 1970s, you watched prices explode. Your money evaporated daily. That specific generation learned a devastating lesson. Saving cash is a mathematically guaranteed path to poverty. But a person entering adulthood in the 1990s experienced a beautifully stable, perfectly calm economic climate. One generation frantically spends to beat inflation. The other confidently saves. Both are simply reflecting history. Their financial decisions are not a reflection of their intelligence. They are biological adaptations to past economic trauma. When we aggressively debate about money, we are simply reading maps of entirely different historical worlds. You can read endless books about financial panics, but reading is absolutely not the same as living the nightmare. To truly understand this terrifying psychological disconnect, we must look at the darkest financial era in modern history, the 1930s. While millions starved in the Great Depression, a young man named John F. Kennedy lived in absolute paradise. While entire American cities collapsed into absolute ruin, his wealthy family remained completely untouched by the devastation. Millions of ordinary people lost their homes, their dignity, and their minds waiting in endless breadlines. Kennedy only truly learned about the Great Depression much later, while safely studying at Harvard University. He learned the exact unemployment numbers, the dates, and the absolute mathematical severity of the crisis. but he completely lacked the visceral, crushing animal terror of not knowing how to feed his family. Because he never truly felt that raw terror, he could never organically understand their extreme financial caution. A tiny fraction of personal, painful experience is infinitely more convincing than a massive, silent academic library. What seems like pure financial madness to you is simply someone else following their intensely personal map. Knowing this truth, let us boldly examine the most wildly irrational, mathematically impossible financial behavior in America. Why do the absolute poorest people spend billions of dollars every single year buying mathematically impossible lottery tickets? In America, the lowest income households cannot come up with $400 for a basic emergency. Yet those exact same households miraculously spend over $400 every single year on lotteries. To anyone with a stable income, this specific financial decision looks like absolute, undeniable mathematical madness. You are literally taking the exact safety net needed to survive and violently setting it on fire. But if we stop judging the dry math and deeply examine their psychological reality, the madness disappears. Imagine a brutal daily reality where your entire paycheck vanishes entirely before you even hold the cash. You absolutely cannot save money. You cannot invest in stocks. You cannot ever buy a home. For those specific people, purchasing a lottery ticket simply buys the only affordable dream available. It is a violently cheap ticket directly into a fleeting fantasy where absolutely all financial agony finally ends. We do not have to mathematically agree with the decision, but we absolutely must understand the powerful psychology. Saving a few dollars a week feels utterly pointless when a massive financial tsunami is constantly approaching. If you are drowning in crushing debt, saving $20 provides absolutely zero psychological relief. One single unexpected broken bone or broken car engine violently shatters months of painful, desperate sacrifice. The lottery ticket offers the only immediate, magical escape from a profoundly rigged, mathematically impossible game. They are not financially stupid. They are simply surviving a completely different, much darker economic reality. It provides a fleeting, deeply necessary illusion of control in a brutal universe that offers absolutely none. But the lottery is merely a symptom. The absolute root of our financial struggle is entirely biological. Homo sapiens evolved over 300,000 years to survive pure, immediate, highly violent physical danger. Our primitive brains are violently hardwired for instant gratification, extreme tribal loyalty, and acute survival terror. Evolution perfectly prepared us to aggressively hunt mammoths. Evolution did absolutely nothing to prepare us for compound interest. For almost the entirety of human history, the very concept of retirement simply did not exist. The modern retirement system we rely on entirely was only invented in 1978. We brutally judge ourselves for failing to master a mathematical game that is barely 50 years old. The modern credit card only appeared in the 1950s. Suddenly, massive consumer debt became completely invisible. You are not deeply flawed with money. You are simply a biological beginner in a brand new universe. For generations, massive corporations completely managed your retirement. Suddenly, that monumental risk was aggressively shifted onto you. Your grandfathers did not need to be professional asset managers to survive, but today, you absolutely must be. Even the 30-year mortgage is an incredibly young concept. Living permanently in massive debt is a modern experiment. We are essentially driving a terrifyingly complex, radically advanced digital spaceship using only primitive, ancient biological instincts. No one has a multi-generational map for this completely new economy. We are absolutely all just improvising. We are all playing an entirely modern, terrifyingly complex game using deeply ancient, highly flawed biological hardware. True financial success is rarely about pure mathematical genius. It is almost entirely about absolute behavioral control. When you witness someone making a massive financial mistake, do not judge them. Recognize their deep vulnerability. Every single one of us has massive, unavoidable blind spots, perfectly shaped by our uniquely limited past. We must replace our harsh mathematical judgment with profound empathy and deep, absolute financial humility. We return to our fundamental truth. People do incredibly crazy things with money. But no one is crazy. Every single person builds their reality from a tiny, fractured piece of an infinitely vast historical mosaic. Their deeply personal logic perfectly matches the specific financial reality they survived during their highly impressionable youth. This profound truth demands absolute empathy for others, but it also demands complete forgiveness for your own past. Once you truly accept that no one is crazy, this terrifying financial universe finally begins to make sense. Empathy is not just a moral virtue, it is the ultimate psychological shield against absolute market panic. Stop brutally comparing your financial progress to others. You are absolutely playing entirely different financial games. A day trader and a passive investor buying the exact same stock have completely different finish lines. If you do not rigidly define your own game, you will inevitably become a victim of theirs. True financial peace begins with profound humility. Acknowledge the absolute chaos and simply focus on your path. You now possess a deeply powerful lens. You understand that every financial decision makes perfect sense. Forgive your past mistakes. They were simply survival mechanisms in an economy you did not fully understand. True wealth is absolutely never about outsmarting the market. True wealth is entirely about mastering yourself. I am Elias. Welcome to the 1% of minds who actually understand the psychology of money. Until our next deep dive into the human mind, stay profoundly calm and stay relentlessly observant.